Good afternoon. Welcome to the Friday, March 15th, 2024 public meeting of the Kingston City Land Bank's Communication, Community Engagement, and Fundraising Committee. My name is Mike. I serve as the Executive Director. And with that, I turn it over to the Committee Chair, Mr. Bartek Stardai.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I did send around an agenda, and according to our schedule, the primary focus of this meeting is fundraising. However, there are a few comms-related items that I think we should begin with. And Rebecca, I'm going to turn it over to you.
I'd like to share my screen if that's okay.
Yes, you're set up to do that. So go ahead.
Okay, great. Let me try. So I decided to take on the question of placemaking as in a larger way, and I did a SWOT. Do you guys know what a SWOT is? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? So looking at placemaking as a slightly larger idea, I tried to pass this by Mike and Nate yesterday, couldn't get it through. So I brought my salt shaker with me. This is looking at placemaking as a larger idea, thinking that that placemaking is maybe, well, you'll see, right? So ignore the first part for a second. In terms of the Kingston City Land Bank doing a placemaking project of some size, the strength, it seems to me, is the sense of space and place already exists in mission and works of the Kingston City Land Bank. It has an on-the-ground commitment to people and properties in the city of Kingston, and it's already a not-for-profit, right? The weakness is that we have no media or engagement person on staff. We have a really busy, small, and disparate staff. I mean, disparate in the sense that you're disparate around. There's a pretty narrow window of community engagement at this point. In terms of where do we engage with the community in a more general way, other than just selling or working on the houses, which of course is our primary mission, let's be clear. One of the grants that I've researched is actually due in April 24th. That's a weakness because I don't think we could move that quickly. The opportunity is there are some substantive placemaking or Main Street funds available. It seems to me that the timeline for Third Avenue is long, which maybe means that there's space to work with. Some of the grants I've looked with are placemaking grants, Main Streets grants, American Challenge grants. I think the opportunity that you have on your board right now is you have me, Joanna, who's a teacher, Owen, who is already engaged in the community as a dancer, Aaron, and partner are both involved in the film world a little bit. And the threat is we wouldn't get the money or we couldn't find the money, that we can't find the people to develop or deliver a plan like this. It confuses or rather than clarifies the mission of the land bank and SNAF, right? Something that we just can't predict. So when I'm talking about placemaking, what I'm talking about is a 3-part plan like this or something like this. And the reason I wanted to run it by you guys yesterday is because this might not be the plan, but I didn't want to try to go further than the SWOT without engagement from the board, right? Engagement from the company. Otherwise, it's a lot of work and I just don't want to go further. But, you know, a placemaking program for the Kingston City Land Bank would be adjacent to, so you want to think of it as being adjacent, not in, more like meta, right? So there could be like a partnership, right? There could be a Third Avenue outdoor movie program. We could do a Tell Us Who Lived Here oral history project by actually hiring and training some college students, which would also provide one of the things that placemaking or wants to do, which is actually raise skill levels and create arts in the community. The Kingston City Land Bank could sponsor a public art project for Third Avenue in collaboration with someone like me, for instance, that creates access to who lived here material that we had generated before as a thing in the emerging Third Avenue campus, whether that's a video or an installation or a piece of art or a piece of oral history or something like that. and the kinds of things that we would develop around this idea would be, from a community point of view, it'd be storytelling, oral history, creation, implementation, teamwork, history making, presenting, right? So what I'm actually talking about is actually, and the reason there are question marks around me is because I'm on the board, right? So, but I wouldn't have to be on the board. I could actually just resign from the board, or I could take a leave, or I could recuse myself from any decisions about that. That was the other thing that I wanted to pass by Mike and Nate yesterday, right? And the only reason I'm saying this is because I'm, as far as I know, I'm the only person that's on the board that could actually research and budget and think through a project like this. And the reason that I did this SWOT is because I think that part of the reason that we're having some trouble lifting things like the RFP or other kinds of things is because we don't have a base, right? We don't have a placemaking base, right? We don't have a base of engagement with the community. And I don't think that the people that are doing the amazing work of the Kingston Land Bank are necessarily the people who have the time, the money, or the energy, nor should they necessarily, right? I'm not mean that as criticism. I mean it as a compliment of the work that's already being done. So I just wanted to put this idea into a placemaking thing, into the discussion of placemaking. There are 1,000 ways you could go with a placemaking grant. Do you know what I mean? There are 1,000 different directions that you could go with it. They run from $10,000 to $100,000. They could be like big, small, they can be long or short. And it would have to run completely on as a capsule adjacent to the land bank, not in the land bank. Does that make sense? It would have to have its own personnel, its own agenda. It would have to run all of its planning decisions and objectives and goals by the land bank, but it couldn't be the job of the land bank to do it. It would have to be next door. And a lot of placemaking grants or artist engagement grants are actually developed that way, so that you partner with an organization, but the artist is operating in their own space. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, and have a think about it. We can come back to it. I can send you my SWOT if you want, if that would be helpful. Or I can go further into developing the idea, even one step further, but I would not want to do that without discussion and buy-in, and that's not the purpose of this meeting. Well, I mean, it is in the sense, but we're looking at fundraising, though you could say bringing $10,000 or $50,000 in would be fundraising, depending on how that money might interface with the land bank, right? Like whether, how, I don't know. I've never worked. There are grants that are set up specifically for organizations that are already embedded in the community that are not artist organizations, right? They're not like the Art Society of Kingston or something like that, right? So you don't have to be an artist organization to apply for funding like this. Yeah, so it's an active set of information for you guys to consider. And that's my presentation. Thank you. You just say cool.
Cool. Thanks, Rebecca.
Yeah.
I did have some questions. Nate, do you want to go first, though? I saw you on mute.
I just have one quick question. I'm not familiar with the term placemaking. Is that something we've discussed before? I just wasn't sure if that was that's just not a term I've heard before, and wasn't sure if that's something we've talked about or if that's sort of a generally understood term.
It's my impression that it's been talked about before, not perhaps in this way, but I do think that there were conversations at the retreat and other places about bringing energy and interest to Third Avenue or to another project like that, where it's going to take us a long time to build anything, right? Because the project has a long road to hoe, that using that property in a way that would benefit the community would be maybe just a good thing, like sometimes you just do things because they're a good thing, right? So, and I just don't think that you can engage the community. It's my opinion that you have to go at that with some there, right? Like if you're going to do something like that, there needs to be a there, and that always requires planning and money, right? To make a there, right? Which does not mean that we shouldn't do it, you know, or we shouldn't partner with someone to do it or think about it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and just to give Nate some more context, it is a term that is like known in urban planning industry, usually more focused on place like things that will remain like public open spaces in a community, but the goal is to like create strong ties between the people and the public place. I don't know if like eventually like the property is going to transform. So if we kind of want to use it as like a different term or something more like
No, that one's
property
totally
highlight or something, but
Yeah, no, that one's totally fine. I just didn't have the
Yeah.
context. So I think I think I get it now.
cool.
Yeah, and Rebecca, I do wonder about, to Barbara's point, like there is a little bit of tension here, right? Because whatever we do, like if we do like some sort of art installation, let's use that example, right? It's temporary. It's do you think there's a tension there at all between this kind of the transition phase and the what we want to happen on the space?
I mean, I would push back that an art installation wouldn't necessarily be temporary. Right? It depends on what it is, right? And it would have to develop over time anyway. So the development of Third Avenue, we could meet the art installation, whether that, I mean, our installation could be as simple as, you know, as a plaque with a access on it with a QR code where you could go find, you know, recorded performances of oral histories that we got about the space. You know, one of my drivers, my artistic drivers in all the work that I do in Kingston and housing is actually the tension between what stays and what goes. And that includes stories, histories, people, you know, buildings. All of them have all of that. And no other arts organization, no other artist that I know of in Kingston at this moment, except for maybe the maker of the Roundout, you know, and the guy who photographed the Roundout, but the Roundout documentary is really super interested in finding ways to install pieces of history or to let history there as it changes, right? And, you know, there's just no other, you know, that's just my personal thing, but, you know, we could take a placemaking grant in a completely different direction. Just one of your, you know, one of the SWAT things happens to be that I'm here, and that is a concern of mine, an interest of mine. And then also that you have people like Owen who have a very strong sense of like being on the ground with people, and things like that, as I understand it, because he spends a lot of time talking to the neighbors, stuff like that. You know, Mike's response to the Polish club. I mean, there's a lot, you know, every time we build something, all renewal causes change, and change takes things away as well as bring things. So that's just my artistic point of view. That's not really relevant to this level of discussion. It might be relevant at another time, but it's not. But that's my pushback about art being transitory. It doesn't necessarily to be transitory. But it's also skills making. The other thing about placemaking or America Challenge grants is they're also about developing skills in the community, you know, through community outreach things. So, and like I said, it's not necessarily the job of the land bank. So, you know, but also I do think even if we just take away the idea that in order to create a placemaking or to create a community engagement plan, there needs to be a substantive point, like of access, right? A point of access and a goal in engaging with the community, other than, or it doesn't have to be other than anything, but it does need to be clear for it to be successful, in my opinion. So, and it
I
also
have
needs
also
money.
some questions.
Okay.
So the
Okay.
properties have always been private, right? Like privately held and in the past, right? Like they haven't been used for public space, public events or anything like that in the past.
Not to our knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, other than the holiday party we did at Franklin, but that was obviously before it was sold. But
Yeah.
yes, they're all sold to, private homeowners and not.
I think the engagement for this parcel should always really always, in my opinion, be like heavily focused on what our future project is going to be. Because if you use that property for other events or like if you set up like a movie series or, people are gonna get used to that and they're gonna say, well, we don't why would we this is great, the neighborhood loves it, and we like having that open outdoor access space, even though that's not our main mission. It's harder to start something and then take it away from the community. But if it's events that are focused specifically on what our future development is going to be, I think that there could be some interesting opportunities there. But that's just my concern is what if people decide, these alternative engagement plans are, but they prefer them over, more housing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for instance, if you were gonna look to put retail in the eventual development, or if you wanted to put a grocery store, then would not necessarily be a bad place to put a market, for instance, an temporary outdoor market, which is actually quite difficult to do in Kingston. I think it'd be successful. There is a new market in Pahaki. I don't know how you say it here. We would say it differently in Wisconsin, so I don't know how you say that neighborhood, but it just started a couple of weeks ago. They're trying to get a market going. And of course, there have been some other attempts at community-based markets that have not been so successful.
Yeah.
Right. But I think the specifics, I don't want to get granular. The idea is whether to just take away from the meeting so we can get back to the agenda of the meeting, is that there is money out there to do that there might be something we could do, and that might provide a base to create a stronger understanding of what the land bank does, as well as maybe do something that none of the other housing concerns are, there's a lot of work going on, but if we're going to connect with the community, what can we give them while we can't give them a house, is kind of my question. So,
Yeah,
so
and you mentioned the grant. What's the April 24th grant? What is that?
I think that's an America Challenge grant. I can, I don't know, I'd have to.
Or you muted yourself, Rebecca.
So rare. I think it is an America Challenge grant or an artist collaboration grant. I'd have to look them up. I pulled 4 different grants before I put the SWAT together to see if there was anything like that.
Okay.
Some of them are already gone. Some of them have rolling deadlines,
Mhm.
So I'll write you a short, or I'll just throw some links onto the bottom of this SWAT and you can take a look at that.
Yeah, I mean, I do, we had discussed that we do want to do some sort of placemaking on the site. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think
Yeah,
I'd like to, I think there's something there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, my point is also just that if you raised money for it, if we were
Mhm.
if we were able to secure money for it, then we could actually hire people to do it. And then it doesn't become an extra burden, because I just don't think that, it just doesn't seem to me that there's airspace in the wonderful people that we have working for us for more burden. So,
Yeah. And I do think, the benefit with this space is, let's say we do use, let's say half the space for some sort of I don't know, temporary soccer field, whatever. That space is still going to be there at the end of the development because of the constraints of the site. There's going to be a lot of open space still there. Right, Mike? I'm not crazy. But
I don't think you're crazy, Bartek.
yes. All right,
So
So-
just so, sorry,
Just
could I ask a
discuss it
question?
again. Huh?
So just so I'm understanding, 'cause I think, like, I love the energy and that we're really talking about like better ways to do outreach and, you know, expand our footprint in the community. Um, just so I'm understanding, so that you're envisioning this would be almost like a separate venture with like separately hired staff funded by this grant or some other grant that would be working at the direction of the land bank to do these initiatives? Is that, am
I think
understanding that right?
venture is too big a word. You know, venture is maybe, so in any kind of arts programming or even sports programming or education program is going to be quite finite. It's going to have a finite sort of relationship. So, and so I think that the, in my world or in my thought, we would raise money and we would put a plan together and then we would execute the plan by hiring someone to do the plan, right? So that the job of the person was to execute the plan, which would actually be the hardest part, actually, I think, but rather than make a plan that anyone who works at the land bank right now has to execute because they're busy, right? So I don't want to throw that work. And also it's like I said, I don't think if we want a community engagement plan to enliven that space and in that time, then we need to throw some money at it and some people at it.
Yeah, so that's sort of like what I was getting at. So whether it's a venture or whatever we want to call it, I guess what I'm saying is it's sort of a separate initiative that operates outside of our current staff and board.
Yeah.
That would be funded by a grant and would this be funded by other sources or just these other grants?
I mean, it just depends on how deep you want to get into it. And and I could come back with ideas about that, but it would take some time to push those ideas around and come up with a cohesive presentation of what would be possible. So I don't want to do that until we think about it because it's time consuming.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions or comments to Rebecca? Okay, so Rebecca, could you send around what you shared? And then also, yes, I'd be curious to know what that April grant is.
Okay, and I will just I'll put something next to placemaking that's like an imaginary structure, an imaginary like something, right? Mind, isn't there some word for it? Mind something, blue skying, something like that.
Blue skying, yes.
Okay. Great.
Yes. Okay, thanks, Rebecca. Two more comms things. Social media. We don't have a social media manager, but we still need one. And Mike, have we formally replied to Katie Dwyer or?
We have not.
Okay.
The RFP is still open till the 26th, so.
Got it. So we're gonna wait until after. See, okay. All right. Have we sent that around to everyone? I know I received it.
The
Katie
RFP.
Dwyer. No, the Katie Dwyer response.
Right. I don't remember, but I can send it around this committee.
Okay, I'll send. Okay, I can do it too, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
The location of our next ribbon cutting event. Mike, you had sent a note about to me potentially about setting it at Rogers instead of Franklin, and the primary reasoning behind that being that it's a legacy city's home. Right.
Okay. I would recommend, having thought it through, I think Franklin is an awesome space and it's really exciting to be at the end of our pilot, but a little bit of continuity for the groundbreaking, which was held at Rogers, would be, I think, pretty nice to show the completed project in the same location 18, 19 months later. It also would involve people invited to the event who had sponsored the Legacy Cities program, so they would it would make more sense for them to understand why they're at Rogers rather than Franklin, in my opinion.
The only issue with Rogers that I remember from the groundbreaking is that unless we like shut down that street, which is kind of hard to do because it's like a one-way street, so it kind of screw over the neighbors. The space is a little bit difficult there.
It is tight. You may recall the mayor actually issued a declaration to shut down the street for the date of that the groundbreaking. So we might be able to ask him to do that again. The space in the rear, Owen and I reviewed the current kind of status of it as of yesterday. So it has hay, it has seed, it's cleared, it has a new fence built in the backyard. So it does look prepared. A month from now or so, I did also want to try to softly float a date of April 12th at 4 p.m. possibly. Kyle and I are working feverishly to align all the different pieces of the puzzle, but that might be the date. So a month from now, it would certainly look better. And it is a tight space for sure, but I think last time we were able to fit everybody who wanted to be there and they could park at the church parking lot next door.
Yeah, no, that's true. No, I mean, I think it'd be conceptually, I love the idea where we did the groundbreaking there. Like it'd be kind of a perfect before and after for that house. Just wanted to flag in case we're worried about space concerns and might need to. I do remember the mayor blocked off the street and we got like one of those barriers they put up. So I'm sure we could totally do that again.
Cool. While we're talking about that, if I could, because it's the comms committee, Nate had an awesome suggestion for a banner to go up. I just wanted to float the idea out there. If there were other pieces, I was thinking we could have something in front of the building and something on the rear of the building. So same banner twice currently. Well, that was more of a general banner, Nate, for homes that are for sale. So I don't have any messaging around the banner itself. I could easily make one up, and my hope is to try to do that maybe this weekend or tonight, just to get it in production.
Yeah, I know we have a banner and we definitely should have something if we're gonna do like wherever we end up doing the event, we should definitely have some signage with our logo and name and everything. I think just for everybody else on the call, when we were talking about it the other day, the idea was like when we have homes that are sort of in the middle of construction, to have a specific banner for like mid-construction homes that says something along the lines of like, you know, another affordable housing opportunity brought to you by Kingston City Land Bank. So people know, okay, that's what this construction is, and they know to look out for it when it's done, and, you know, emphasizing that it's affordable housing and just sort of checks all the boxes. But that's a Legacy Cities 2 thing. But either way, we should definitely have banner signage for the ribbon cutting if we don't have that stuff prepared.
I think it's gotten beat up a little bit. The original sign is in rough shape, the one with all the logos. So we can definitely redo that and have a similar one at the back of the house like we did before. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say I think you know, the traffic volume on Rogers is so low anyway that even if you don't close off the street, I don't think it's a huge deal. And you know, my preference would be to do any event in the front. My preference would be to do any event in the front of the house, just because it's so much better to be in the streetscape and like looking at the house from the front. And that's where you're naturally you want to be in the front. And that's just my 2 cents.
I think it might be worth also just having pictures of all 4 homes completed there
Cool.
before and after.
Yeah.
Just so we don't make it, you know, just look like it's at Rogers if we're starting and ending there. Show the other work we've done on the project too.
Cool.
Really good idea, Kyle.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
As long as it doesn't rain. That's the only thing. But we can't predict that. Okay, great. I will definitely be confirming the April 12th date with everyone and sending an email. So if you wouldn't mind tentatively holding that idea, and then we're sure.
Yeah, does it have to be at why 4 p.m. specifically?
The
Is that,
first person,
when have we done, what times have we done them historically? I'm
I think
blanking.
2:30 or 3:30.
Okay,
I reached out to the mayor this morning and 4 p.m. was the time he could make it because he has a 3 p.m. So in the thinking of like starting somewhere, if that doesn't work for everyone's schedule, we can always pivot because there are many more people I have to ask. I just want to start somewhere.
Is it
Got it.
April what?
12th,
April 12th. Thank you.
April 12th. And
Is there
Please-
something to
please.
say for doing it later?
later than 4.
Like, so people could come after work
Hmm.
at 5 o'clock?
We would have to check. Sometimes it does make sense. Totally. It depends on who we want to invite. Sometimes like elected officials traveling for the event or the state traveling for the event from Albany. Sometimes they have it's a lot of cat herding as far as the start time and the date and everything. I just wanted to throw something out there and maybe take temperature with people as it moves forward. We also have to make sure that we're ready to close on homes so that there's a bunch of households who are actually ready to close by that day.
cool. Well,
Cool.
Mike, keep us posted.
Will do.
All right, let's talk about fundraising. So, I don't think we've talked about this formally for 2024. I put the first bullet point I put here in the agenda is defining the need, right, for 2024. So, obviously there's these big projects and then there's like these big grants, right, that Kyle and Mike are going after, like the Mid-Hudson Momentum Fund, right, that could potentially be relevant for like the Third Avenue project. But what is the, in terms of pursuing other, maybe perhaps smaller grants, what would that dollar amount be? And then what would be the objective of that solicitation? So is it to help us toward a particular housing project? Or, I think in the past, we've sometimes framed it as anything that is donated will go towards reducing the purchase price, right, of the affordable homes. Yes, I was going to ask you that, Mike, but didn't want to put you on the spot. So the 2024 approved budget item is 40,000. And is there an objective for that or a specific end goal for that, Mike? No. Okay, so it's to be defined.
Not at the time.
Okay. So we would have to define the objective of that fundraising. Any thoughts,
I have
comments? Yep.
a question. Is the 40K the same number as like what was in last year's budget, or is it an increase from last year's?
It's actually a decrease, and I can't remember why. It's a $10,000 decrease.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Well, the question is, if we're making a solicitation or if we're applying for additional grants, are we fundraising around a specific project or just perhaps more general to our mission? And sometimes in the past, we've said that donations would go toward reducing the purchase price of our homes, right, that are being sold, right? The kind of the down payment or the principal amounts reduced by the amount of the donation, specifically making homes, more affordable, for example.
I mean, I think you could, the simplest and most direct way to raise money would be to raise money to lower the price, right? That's the simplest place to raise money, there might be other ways that you could, if you wanted to take on some other problems that sometimes feel larger than we want to take on, like increased ADA access compliance or different kinds of, but anything like that gets very specific. in my experience, fundraising, you can't raise money for operating expenses, so just people aren't interested in that, so what else is there but to lower the cost? And given the current state of the interest rates and all the other shenanigans going on in the market, lowering the cost seems to be a useful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be my vote. Just keep it simple. I know that seems surprising for me, but it's true. It's true.
Do you
I
think?
agree.
Yeah. Okay. One question for this year is, are we going to have any homes for sale though? Or I guess it doesn't matter. Does that matter? We
We
might
won't
not.
have any homes for sale this year, most likely, because the construction loan closing date is probably too far into the year to complete a home and sell it. But we will have 6 homes that we're working on to rehab.
So that ask is still relevant?
Yes,
Okay.
because the budget itself would be set before the construction loan closing. So that would be a component of the underwriting for the purchase price.
I mean, is it appropriate to ask you, Mike, is there something else you want us to try to raise money for?
Thank you, but not that I can think of. I
Okay.
personally think increasing affordability is a really resonant way to ask people for money.
Seems to be the simplest way in terms of like just not having overly complicated, ways to allocate that money and put it towards things. It seems like the question we've always had is just how to go about asking for that. I don't know if that's where you were going next, Bartek, but
How, meaning the specific language around that, or like the method, like online versus in person, Nate?
yeah, the method, meaning like, we've had events where we put up a QR code or we, have put out a direct ask on social media, but, what types of ways can we actually push that out and try to get people to donate? And whether that means tying it to, one of the events that, that Rebecca has on her community engagement plan, or having it part of just sort of a general online push. There's no bad ideas in a brainstorm. So I think we're open to any different ways to get that message out, and it's just a question of how.
Yeah, I mean, something, we've set end of year goals, like towards the end of the year, but I wonder if we could try just setting a longer term goal, like to raise the 40,000, right? Like, hey, we're raising this 40,000 this year to help make our homes more affordable. And do that would be over a longer period of time rather than just making it something that we do like towards the end of the year. That would just be a campaign that we're doing. And I agree. I think the in-person solicitation hasn't necessarily worked for whatever reason, except for that one that one event, the standard where we just went gangbusters. I think it was just the right timing and the right message, but yeah. Any thoughts on the method, Barbara or Rebecca?
I like the objective. I think the message needs to be, kept simple, as Rebecca stated, like what our goal is. Right now my brain is like working like, how do we like increase getting like ideas on how to push and like get more the name out more in terms of a com/fundraising way. And like, can we make like a video reel of like what the houses looked like before, and like, are any of the families in the houses willing to be in a video and just like, even if it's exterior shot, like playing outside if they're a family, like, I don't know, something like that. Just say like, you know, we really appreciate, you know, the opportunity to have purchased the home through the land bank. And, you know, pushing that out in an email blast. Some people like to see success stories, right? And like transformation stories, and maybe put like a human face to the end result. Even like there's so many local like movie theaters, like they take ads before they start playing previews, like get it out, have them like play it before movies. I don't know, like with the link of this is this important to you? Donate here. Like anything will go towards that cause, like no amount is too small type thing. So I think
I mean,
the
I think
40,000 is a great like goal. It's pretty, I mean, did we meet last year's goal of 50,000? Yeah, so we'd be successful, hopefully.
I mean, I
We-
guess I think using, this is what I learned from Mike, actually, so I think that using the families there's some real problems with the families, like
Mm.
with their stories and with making them, my interpretation of what Mike said to me, so my interpretation was just that there's some, you know, there's just, that's maybe not what they're up for or into.
Totally. Yeah.
But I do think that creating a presentation that could be used in the business community about the utility of and the opportunity to contribute to lower the price of houses, like at the Rotary, or there's a there's a apparently there's a Rotary, I heard from some older person, and then there's also like a business group of people that meets, I don't know what it's called, but it meets once a month, you know, and it might be possible to just send them ask them if they would, you know, announce this at the top of their meeting, right? And offer an opportunity to discuss, you know, to call in or whatever, right? I'm
Are
not
you
sure.
thinking the Chamber of Commerce?
Chamber of Commerce, or I don't remember what this other business thing is. It was, you had to pay $300 to join or something. So it's a real business networking thing. I don't, but there definitely is a Rotary. There are other, you know, community business, it just would seem like an appropriate group of people to ask to contribute on an individual basis. Is that weird? I don't go to those things. I went to the business thing, but it does that, yeah. Anyway, you know, something like that, because if we don't have a large social event of some kind to attach it to, or news program or something like that, then we don't have any way of getting the word out. So finding some place to put the word out it seems to me to be the challenge. I am going to the community engagement workshop at the radio station next week, if I live that long. The community partners workshop.
Great. Keep us posted. What
One
business
phone.
event costs $300 in Ulster County?
What is it?
Which
I don't-
business event costs $300 to attend in Ulster County?
No, you just have to, you have to become a member.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, they take one poor person in a month to pitch. I did that, but
Okay,
think-
well, yeah.
nothing. I
Um,
have nothing useful to say. Sorry.
I think these are good ideas and a good kind of framework for the year. I was wondering also, so Erin in the past, especially led kind of applying to formal grant solicitations. And I think our experience with that historically has been mixed. And maybe Kyle or Mike, you could correct me on that, but I believe that's the case. Usually the dollar amounts are fairly small and we haven't gotten them. So unless there was a specific opportunity like Rebecca, like that placemaking grant that you mentioned, I don't know if they're worth our time necessarily, but I just wanted to have a discussion on that.
I think having written 1,000 small grants, they're never worth the time.
Yeah.
So, they feel like they might be, but they really aren't. It'd be better to set up a cookie table. So, so, that's my personal opinion. But larger grants are something else, you know, and if we find we have an opportunity, like for instance, we want to build a soccer field, a temporary soccer field, you know? I mean, I ain't got nothing against soccer. It doesn't have to be arts, right? Or a temporary playground, you know, we could probably raise some major money to do that if we wanted to do that. Then we'd have to argue with all kinds of people, but you know how that is. Anyway, I just thought maybe we could just send something out to the mailing list that we have already, that we're looking for opportunities to celebrate our fundraising opportunities. You know what I mean? Like a letter or something.
Wait, sorry, Rebecca, say that last point again about the mailing
We
list.
have a mailing list, right? Of some kind.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
we do.
Why don't we just at least start by sending out a letter saying, you know, there are opportunities for individuals to give to the land bank. We want you to know that so you can give, but also if you know other people that might want to contribute, please let us know, or please pass this on to them, this opportunity.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm still taking the flyers down that I taped to poles, you know, it's a little better than taping the flyers to the poles. But everyone who looked at a flyer went, oh, there's a land bank and that has houses. You know, it's like that's trust the bus, right? Trust the bus.
Okay. That is everything I had in the agenda to discuss for today. Does anyone have anything else for comms or fundraising?
I just have a question about the newsletter. And is there a regular schedule for the newsletter?
Yeah, so we did send one out earlier this what was it, January? And then Mike sent out another one recently with some specific stuff. I do think, you know, at minimum it's like a quarterly cycle where I think we should, you know, capture the latest and greatest and make sure that we're doing it quarterly at the very least.
Maybe every 2 months we could send out a 200 or 400 word fun update fact about one of the houses that we're working on, something like that. I mean, really short, like I don't tweet or X or anything because I value my sanity, but you know, there's a lot of great stories about how the work goes on, or pictures, even sharing pictures of before and after, and quarterly is hard to keep interest going. So, and if you can think of things you want to write about, you can throw it at me, Bartek, and I'll write about it.
We should, yeah, can you make a flow chart of how the land bank acquired a home from the city and the timeline?
I could try.
A little,
Yeah.
yes.
You and I'd
This
have to have a
like
meeting.
10
but-
years.
But I mean, more like, you know, like we all, you know, whatever. Like that we bought the tile at the green tile in the backsplash came from the Home Depot, or,
Mhm.
you know, we bought these floorboards from wherever, blah, 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 you know. Why do we use, you know, anything to keep interest going? That's right.
Yeah.
That somebody could open the email and read it, like, and then close the email. Put the fundraising link at the bottom.
We should have it's a regular highlight, notes from Owen or something like that.
Yeah. That'd be great. I think it'd be great. Or
Yeah.
notes from Nate, you know, or notes from Kyle. I don't know what Kyle does. I think Kyle's from Nashville, though. Went to school in Nashville. Surprise, you know? Who is Kyle? You know, anything that we can talk about, right? There's a lot of the similar characters in Kingston. It's nice to do, you know, what do we have that's a little different going on, you know?
Yeah.
And super short, right? So that's why I'm volunteering to write it. If you tell me what to write about, I'll write it and I'll send it back to you, you know?
Okay. Does anyone have anything else? All right, I will pass around the notes and next steps. Thank you all.
Great.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye.
Bartek. Nice to see everyone. See you shortly.
You too.